Welcome in to another episode of the International Dynasty Download. My name is Delftdad, and today we are going roster diving. Not dumpster diving, roster diving. Although I will say some of these episodes will also be dumpster diving, but not today. You see, today we are going through the roster of the commissioner himself. That's right, we're going through Ben's roster, the current owner of the Worcester Worriers, 1874. A little bit of background here. Ben has been in the league since the very start, since 2019, has been the commissioner the whole time. He started out this league in a position that I think every single dynasty owner has been in at one point or another if you've played long enough, and that is the unenviable position of being mid. In his first 2 years, he had a combined record of 13-13, finishing barely in the playoffs and then losing in the first round. Not a good spot to be in. But he also was able to pull off one of the more incredible feats, I think, in Dynasty, which is a complete rebuild in 1 year. Not something that you're able to do very often. In 2021, he finished in last place in the league, securing the first overall pick with, by the way, what still stands as the worst overall record in this league, 1-13. But it was worth it. It really was. In that year, I believe he drafted Jamar Chase, I want to say. And well, the rest is history. He finished in second place in 2022 with an 8-6 record in the regular season, and he lit it up in the playoffs. He really did. In 2023, he finished with a 10-4 record, which was good for second seed. He did get the first round bye, but he ended up finishing in fourth place, losing in both his only playoff game, the semifinals, and also the third place consolation game. So a little bit of background there. As you can see, Ben has come a long way from where he was in 2021. And also, I think, pretty successfully managed this team throughout the history of this league. But now we get to dive into what his team currently is, and we're starting at the very top. This is a super flex league. The most important position is quarterbacks. So you can see the quarterbacks here on screen. We have quite a conglomeration here. At the top, starting from the top down, we obviously have Patrick Mahomes, who is the QB2 currently in Dynasty and the number 2 asset overall, I think only behind Josh Allen, according to these rankings. Now, that's arguable, but Patrick Mahomes being a top 5 quarterback, I don't think is. He had a down season this year, which I think is part of the reason why Ben struggled so much in the playoffs. While starting hot, Patrick Mahomes absolutely did not finish hot. And that's a problem. But beyond Patrick Mahomes, who I think is going to be good, top tier talent, going to be good for the next, 6 to 8 years at the minimum, I think. We have Tua. Tua is, I think, a bigger question mark at this point in his career than most Tua owners are excited to admit. Still has a lot of value, though. Still is positionally an advantage, especially in a two-quarterback league, as Tua does have those spike weeks that really do put you over the top, especially in the regular season. He struggled towards the back half of this year, and I really wonder what sort of changes we're going to get in Miami to help adjust the offense, which really did not do well the back half of this year. And then we have Deshaun Watson, who, again, in Superflex is a fine quarterback too. I don't envy your position of having to own Deshaun Watson, but there it is. And then a whole bunch of backups, some fodder that really can come in clutch when inevitably somebody gets hurt, right? Case Keenum's a backup to Davis Mills and to C.J. Stroud in Houston. I think Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito will be some conglomeration of backup in New York. And Flacco proved to be much more valuable than most people thought in the back half of the year. Ironically enough, starting Joe Flacco over Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs probably would have saved this roster. And I don't know how you have the guts to do that, and I don't think Ben did, but isn't that just fun? Just fun to have? All right, moving on to running backs here. I think this is Ben's weakest position. His RB ranking is 4th, but I think that's really more due to David Montgomery and Alvin Kamara not having the, I think, drop in value that they should. Both of those running backs are questionable going into next year. I think Cook will continue to be a stalwart. He's RB11 right now in Dynasty. I think that might even be a little low based off of his usage towards the back half of the year with the new OC in Buffalo. So I think James Cook and Ty Chandler, hot take, are going to be the more valuable running backs than David Montgomery and Alvin Kamara next year. Just my opinion. But regardless, after the top 4 running backs, I personally, it's junk. J.K. Dobbins probably never going to return from that secondary injury. It's unfortunate because he was a really, really good running back, but his value is almost worthless right now in Dynasty. Miles Sanders is pretty much the same. He's been beaten by Chuba Hubbard at this point. Justice Hill is a career backup. Josh Kelly is a career backup. Jamal Williams will never return to the height that he had in Detroit. I don't even know who Kenny McIntosh is, but he's behind 2 solid running backs in Seattle. Jerick McKinnon will be serviceable, and Darrell Henderson isn't on our NFL roster right now, though apparently if Kyron gets hurt, will be the guy, which is a little bit of a fun side story. So in my opinion here, this is Ben's weakest position, and he is aging out, unfortunately, at this position. David Montgomery and Alvin Kamara, both question marks for next year. And in 2 years, James Cook runs into some contract issues. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. But this is something that I think Ben will likely have to make a move in the offseason for. But then we go directly to his best position, the wide receiver room. I spoke about it a little bit at the top. Jamar Chase really headlines this, though Amon-Ra St. Brown is not far behind. When this room is healthy, this is the best wide receiver room in the league. Depth is of a mild concern, as 4 of these 7 have to be starting on any given week for this roster, but 6 of the 7 names that you see here are fully capable of starting most weeks. Jamar, Amon-Ra, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith are, I think, top-tier wide receivers, especially in Dynasty. You're really young. Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith, yeah, their values were not as good this year, but I think that's mostly just due to a down year overall. And I think the Jalen Waddle Tua Tagovailoa stack will be better next year. Zay Flowers, Wan'Dale Robinson, both young, promising wide receivers. I think Zay Flowers right now is a little overvalued just based off of how we finished this year. I think with Andrews returning and Lamar with a better grasp of the new offense next year, I think you'll see a balancing where Zay Flowers is just a solid wide receiver too and much more consistent. With Wan'Dale Robinson, it really is just a huge question mark of who's the quarterback and are they consistent in New York. If there's a consistent quarterback in New York and they can get an improvement in offensive line play this year, I think Wan'Dale Robinson has a chance to have a really good second-year breakout and become sort of a wide receiver too in Dynasty. So Andre Iosivas, I don't even know who that is. Never heard that name before, but, pop off. So if I had to give you advice, Ben, it would be get a wide receiver 3 for depth, because if not, you're going to deal with injury concerns next year, in my opinion, especially on bye weeks. Now we're moving on. We have tight ends. We have David Njoku and George Kittle. It's interesting to me that George Kittle is ranked below David Njoku in this ranking. I see them pretty much equal. I think David Njoku is ranked a little too high right now, just due to the fact that Joe Flacco peppered him with targets. Deshaun Watson did not, and Watson should return to being under center next year in Cleveland, which is unfortunate for David Njoku owners. But I do think that George Kittle is still a solid tight end who has the ability to spike and win you a week, right? So, in my opinion, this tight end ranking of 6th is just due to the fact that tight end position as a whole has been really shaken up recently with some new young talent. But this tight end room is going to be more than serviceable for competing next year. Tanner Hudson made some plays late in the year and is looking promising, but the rest of the room, meh. So I think no issues here. More than capable to win you a league, given the history of the tight end position. So overall bench depth, before we move on to the picks, is okay. I think that there's 1 to 2 capable fill-ins at each position. One thing I will say is that it's probably going to need to get more depth over the course of the offseason in the taxi squad, which is made up of two of these 2 tight ends, Andre Isovis and Kenny McIntosh. Unexciting. The picks, though, is where we get to the concerning part. As you can see, no 2024 picks at all, not in there. You'll see on the left-hand side, of your screen, you can see the individual years ranked out. I don't have any problems with this, right? You still have 2 firsts ready to load, 3 firsts, counting the 2027 picks that we'll be getting here soon. And so, in my opinion, this is a fine group of assets to have. Probably going to need to trade up into the first round or second round of the 2024 draft, just because you do need depth at certain positions. But I think you have a great young wide receiver core, and gonna need to try and make some acquisitions this offseason using some limited resources. It'll be very interesting to see how you play that. With my final comments here, I'll just say that I think you'll need to find creative ways to target young running back talent, or you're going to end up risking having a major RB injury derail your team next year. So I think it's possible that a guy like Tajay Spears, Roshan Johnson, Kendre Miller might be on your target list this year in the offseason in order to increase your odds of hitting on a cheaper running back, while still not giving up too many draft assets that can be very helpful in the future. So it'll be very interesting to see how you play this. I'm excited to see it, and that's going to do it for us today. We will be back next week with another episode. I appreciate all the love and support, and I'll see you next week on the Dynasty Download.